The US government is currently spending $52 billion to build a railroad through a desert that nobody lives in. Sounds insane until you realize it's actually the cheap project on this list. Right now, across America, there are construction sites so massive they're visible from space, moving enough dirt to bury Manhattan, and employing more people than some small cities have residents. So what exactly is Uncle Sam building? And why is it costing enough money to make your eyes water? Let's find out. Project 8. The Long Island Railroad Expansion, New York. We're starting with something that sounds boring but is actually a fascinating nightmare. The Long Island Railroad, or LIRR, is the busiest commuter railroad in North America. Over 350,000 people ride it every single day. Everyone going to Manhattan had to funnel through two stations, Penn Station and Atlantic Terminal. That's it. Imagine trying to push 350,000 people through two doorways every day. It doesn't work well. So the government is building Grand Central Madison, a massive expansion that adds LIR service to Grand Central Terminal. Simple idea, horrifying execution. They had to build an entirely new terminal 140 feet below street level, underneath one of the busiest parts of Manhattan, without disrupting the subway lines, water mains, electrical conduits, or the existing Grand Central Terminal that serves 750,000 people a day. The project required drilling through solid bedrock under Park Avenue. We're talking about excavating 8 massive caverns, each one big enough to fit a 15-story building lying on its side. They removed 1.1 million cubic yards of rock. If you tried to fill Yankee Stadium with that rock, you'd fill it nearly 3 times over. Here's where it gets tricky. Manhattan is built on an island with limited space. Where do you put 1.1 million cubic yards of rock? You can't just dump it in Central Park. They had to truck it out, barge it out, find places to dispose of it. The logistics alone cost hundreds of millions. The tunneling happened 24 hours a day for years. Crews working in shifts, drilling, blasting, hauling rock. And they had to do it quietly enough that people sleeping in apartments 140 feet above them didn't lose their minds. Noise ordinances in Manhattan are strict. You can't just set off explosives whenever you want. They also had to deal with water. Groundwater seeps through bedrock. When you're drilling massive caverns under a city, you're essentially creating underground lakes if you don't manage the water. They installed pumping systems, waterproofing, drainage. The engineering is insane. The project cost $11.2 billion. For context, that's more than the GDP of 50 countries. And it's just one commuter rail expansion. The station opened in 2023, but they're still finishing work on various components. It'll cut commute times for hundreds of thousands of people and reduce crowding at Penn Station. Worth it? The commuters think so. Project 7. The I-69 extension. Multiple states Interstate 69 is an ambitious project that makes most highway expansions look like weekend DIY projects. The plan is to connect Port Huron, Michigan, to the Mexican border in Texas, creating a 600-mile trade corridor through the middle of the country. Right now, large sections of it are still under construction, particularly through Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. This isn't just widening existing roads. They're building entirely new interstate-grade highway through areas that currently have 2-lane state routes or nothing at all. We're talking about moving mountains, literally. In Kentucky alone, they're moving enough earth to fill the Empire State Building 40 times over. The project cuts through every kind of terrain imaginable. Swamps in Louisiana that require building elevated roadways on thousands of concrete pilings driven 80 feet into the muck. Mountains in Kentucky that have to be blasted and excavated. Farmland in Indiana, where they're working around drainage systems that have been there for a century. Environmental challenges are massive. The highway crosses hundreds of streams and rivers. Each crossing requires environmental impact studies, permits, mitigation efforts. They're building wildlife crossings, basically bridges for deer and other animals, because studies show these reduce animal deaths by 90% and prevent costly vehicle collisions. The economics are interesting. The estimated total cost is around $5.6 billion for the remaining sections, but that number keeps changing as construction reveals new challenges. Soil conditions are different than expected. Bedrock is deeper. Archaeological sites get discovered and have to be excavated before work continues. Every delay costs money. But here's why they're doing it. The corridor will connect major manufacturing centers, agricultural regions, and ports. It's about moving goods faster and cheaper. A truck that currently takes 12 hours to go from Indianapolis to Memphis might cut 2 hours off that trip. Multiply that by thousands of trucks every day, and the economic impact is massive. Project 6. The Purple Line, Maryland. Maryland is building a 16-mile light rail line connecting Bethesda and New Carrollton, two major transit hubs in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. 16 miles doesn't sound like much until you realize it's going through some of the most densely developed, expensive real estate in America. The Purple Line has to thread through residential neighborhoods, commercial districts, college campuses, and alongside active rail lines, all while dealing with utilities that have been buried and forgotten for decades. They'll discover a water main from 1890 that's not on any map, or electrical conduit that's still in use, but nobody knows who owns it. Construction in old urban areas is archaeological excavation with bulldozers. The project includes 21 stations, 4 major bridge structures, and a tunnel under a historic neighborhood. The bridge over the Capitol Beltway is particularly interesting. They had to build it without disrupting traffic on one of the busiest highways in America. The solution involved building sections off to the side and then sliding them into place during overnight closures. Precision engineering on a massive scale. Cost overruns have been a problem. The original estimate was $2.4 billion. It's now projected at $3.4 billion. What happened? Everything. Utility relocations cost more than expected. Soil contamination was discovered at several sites, requiring environmental cleanup. COVID delayed construction and increased material costs. Inflation hit. Contractors ran into financial problems. The project went through a bankruptcy and reorganization in 2020 when the original contractor walked away. The state had to step in, reorganize the financing, find new contractors. Construction stopped for months. It's now back on track with completion expected in 2027. But that date has moved before. Despite the problems, the Purple Line will transform transportation in the region. It connects to multiple metro lines, MARC commuter rail and Amtrak. It serves the University of Maryland, major employment centers and residential areas. Once complete, it'll serve an estimated 74,000 riders per day. Project 5. The Gateway Program, New York and New Jersey. The Gateway Program is the big one. The absolutely critical can't fail. The entire Northeast economy depends on it project. It's rebuilding the rail infrastructure between New York and New Jersey. And it's complicated enough to make engineers cry. The centerpiece is a new tunnel under the Hudson River. The existing tunnel, the North River Tunnel, was built in 1910. It's 113 years old. And it's dying. Hurricane Sandy in 2012 flooded it with salt water, which corroded the electrical systems, damaged the concrete, and generally accelerated the deterioration of infrastructure that was already ancient. Right now, that tunnel is the only rail link between New York Penn Station and the entire rest of the continent for Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. If it fails completely, 200,000 people per day can't get to work. Track service to Boston, Washington. The entire Northeast Corridor. It all goes through this tunnel. The economic impact of a tunnel closure would be catastrophic. We're talking billions per month in lost productivity. So they're building a new tunnel. Actually, 2 new tunnels running parallel to the old one. The project involves boring under the Hudson River through bedrock and mud, a distance of about 2.5 miles. Doesn't sound far, but tunnel boring under a major river is extraordinarily difficult. Water pressure, geological challenges, the risk of breaking through into the river above. It's dangerous work. They're using tunnel boring machines, massive devices that look like mechanical worms from a science fiction movie. These machines are 30 feet in diameter and weigh thousands of tons. They bore through rock at a rate of about 50 feet per day when conditions are good. When conditions are bad, progress slows to a crawl. The project also includes building a new bridge over the Hackensack River to replace the existing Portal Bridge, a swing bridge from 1910 that frequently gets stuck. When that bridge malfunctions, trains stop. The new bridge is fixed, higher, designed to allow boat traffic to pass underneath without opening. It won't get stuck because it doesn't move. Total cost for the Gateway program is estimated at $16.1 billion. The The federal government is contributing a huge chunk of that through various infrastructure programs. Construction is underway on several components. The new Portal Bridge is partially complete. Tunnel boring is expected to begin soon. Full completion is projected for the early 2030s. Project 4. The Hudson Yards Development, New York. Okay, this one is technically private development, but it involved massive government infrastructure investment and coordination, so it counts. Hudson Yards is the largest private real estate development in U.S. history, built on top of active rail yards on Manhattan's west side. The challenge was insane. The site covers 28 acres of active rail yards that service Long Island Railroad trains. They couldn't shut down the rail yard, so they had to build a platform over it. A platform strong enough to support skyscrapers, parks, and tens of thousands of people, while allowing trains to operate underneath. The platform alone cost $2 billion and required 300 concrete columns driven deep into the bedrock. Some of these columns are 8 feet in diameter and go down 80 feet. The engineering had to account for the weight of multiple skyscrapers, the vibration from trains below, wind loads, seismic activity, everything. On top of this platform, they built 18 million square feet of development. Office towers, residential buildings, retail space, a performing arts center. The tallest buildings are over 1,000 feet. The centerpiece is the vessel, a bizarre honeycomb structure that cost $200 million and has since been closed multiple times due to suicides. But that's a different story. The project required extending the number 7 subway line, which cost $2.4 billion by itself. Under active streets, extended the line by 1 mile to serve Hudson Yards. The new subway station is enormous, designed to handle 100,000 passengers per day. The total project cost exceeds $25 billion, making it one of the most expensive developments ever. The government's contribution through infrastructure and tax incentives was substantial. The economic impact is massive. Thousands of permanent jobs, huge tax revenue for the city, complete transformation of a previously underdeveloped area. Project 3. The California High-Speed Rail. Oh boy. Here we go. California's high-speed rail project is the most ambitious, most expensive, most controversial infrastructure project in America. The plan is to build a 520-mile high-speed rail line connecting San Francisco to Los Angeles, with trains running at 220 miles per hour. Travel time between the cities would be under 3 hours compared to 6 hours driving or 1 hour flying, but with all the airport nonsense. It sounds great in theory. In practice, it's been a disaster of delays, cost overruns, and political fights. The original budget in 2008 was $33 billion. The current estimate is over $100 billion. Yes, you read that right. The cost has tripled, and they've only completed about 119 miles of track in the Central Valley. The easy part. Why so expensive? Everything. Land acquisition costs way more than expected because California real estate is insane. Environmental reviews take years. Every endangered species, every wetland, every historical site requires studies, permits, mitigation. They're building viaducts over farmland to allow irrigation to continue underneath. They're building tunnels through mountains. They're redesigning entire sections to avoid sensitive areas. The route through the Pacheco Pass, connecting the Central Valley to San Jose, requires tunneling through mountains for 13 miles. These aren't small tunnels. They're big enough for high-speed trains, which means massive excavation. The engineering challenges are comparable to the Gotthard Base Tunnel in Switzerland, one of the most impressive tunneling projects in the world. Political support has wavered. Every governor has a different vision. Funding comes and goes. The federal government commits money, then a new administration questions it. The state issues bonds. Voters get angry about the cost. It's a mess, but construction continues in the Central Valley. They're building viaducts, stations, laying track. The goal is to have an operational segment from Merced to Bakersfield by 2030. It won't connect to San Francisco or LA yet, but it'll prove the concept. If it works and doesn't bankrupt the state, maybe they'll finish the rest. Maybe. Project 2. The Gordie Howe International Bridge, Michigan and Canada. Michigan to Windsor, Ontario. It's replacing the aging Ambassador Bridge, and it's a monster. The main span is 2,800 feet, making it the longest cable-stayed bridge in North America. The total length including approaches is nearly 2 miles. Why is this a big deal? The Ambassador Bridge handles 25% of all trade between the US and Canada. Yes, 25% of everything crosses that one bridge. Ancient, and a massive bottleneck. Trucks wait hours to cross during peak times. The Gordie Howe Bridge is designed to handle modern traffic volumes with 6 lanes, 3 in each direction. It includes dedicated lanes for commercial traffic, passenger vehicles, and even pedestrians and cyclists. The approach roads include advanced inspection facilities to speed up customs and border processing. The engineering is impressive. The bridge has to span the Detroit River without disrupting shipping traffic. The towers are 722 feet tall, taller than a 60-story building. The deck is 151 feet above the water to allow the largest ships to pass underneath. They're using over 90,000 tons of steel in the construction. The project is interesting politically because it's being funded entirely by Canada. The Canadian government is paying for the whole thing, around $5.7 billion, because they need this bridge for their economy. Detroit gets a new bridge without paying for it. Pretty good deal. Construction started in 2018 and is expected to finish in 2025. They're ahead of schedule in some areas, which is rare for mega projects. The cable installation is underway. The towers are complete. The approach roads are taking shape. When finished, it'll transform trade efficiency between the two countries. Project 1. The Hanford Site Cleanup, Washington State. The #1 spot goes to something you've probably never heard of but is absolutely critical. The Hanford Site Cleanup is the largest environmental remediation project in the Western Hemisphere, and it's going to take decades. Hanford is where the U.S. produced plutonium for nuclear weapons during World War II and the Cold War. They built 9 nuclear reactors along the Columbia River and several processing facilities. They made the plutonium for the bomb dropped on Nagasaki. They made plutonium for thousands of weapons during the Cold War. There are 177 underground storage tanks containing 56 million gallons of radioactive waste. These tanks are old, some from the 1940s. Many are leaking. The waste is incredibly dangerous, highly radioactive, corrosive, toxic. It's a nightmare to handle. The cleanup involves building the world's largest radioactive waste treatment plant, called the Waste Treatment and Immobilization Plant, or WTP. This facility will convert liquid waste into solid glass, a process called vitrification. The glass forms are stable for thousands of years and can be safely stored. The WTP is massive. It consists of 4 major facilities covering an area larger than 5 football fields. The construction is unlike anything else, because everything has to be built to handle radioactive materials. Massive shielding, redundant safety systems, remote operation capabilities. The complexity is staggering. Cost estimates for the entire Hanford cleanup exceed $300 billion over the next several decades. Yes, $300 billion. It's the most expensive environmental cleanup in history. The federal government spends about $2.5 billion per year on it right now, and that will continue for the foreseeable future. The project employs over 10,000 people directly and supports thousands more jobs in the region. It's the largest employer in southeastern Washington. Engineers, scientists, construction workers, all working on this massive effort to clean up the legacy of nuclear weapons production. The timeline is sobering. Full cleanup isn't expected until 2078 at the earliest. That's over 50 years from now. Some estimates push it past 2100. Generations of workers will spend their entire careers on this project. But it has to be done. The waste is threatening the Columbia River, a major water source. Radioactive contamination in groundwater is moving toward the river. If it gets in, it contaminates the water supply for millions of people downstream. The stakes couldn't be higher. So there you have it. 8 massive government projects reshaping America's infrastructure, cleaning up past mistakes, and building for the future. From commuter rail tunnels under Manhattan to radioactive waste cleanup in Washington, the scale of these projects is mind-boggling. Billions of dollars, decades of work, thousands of people, all focused on building, fixing, and improving the country's infrastructure. If you want more deep dives into how America actually builds things, hit subscribe. More videos coming.